Are we good to go?
Yep, we're good to go.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday, and I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. We're excited to see you. And as we've mentioned a couple weeks over and over, we have gotten rid of kind of doing the roll call just for the consideration of time. And we just ask that everyone please put your name and affiliation in the chat so we can save time, more time for content and discussion. And with that, I'm going to pass it to our Executive Director, Matt Bogoshian. I believe today is a day of round robins, and so we're looking forward to hearing from all of you. Thank you so much, and Matt, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you, Michelle, and good morning, everyone. Hope you're going to have a good week. As folks know, this 30-minute call is we do each week. It's a quick, important touch point with friends and colleagues working together to strengthen the American project, focusing on the cornerstone of American prosperity manufacturing. Today's call, like Michelle said, is a round robin call. When we have announcements by regions and public and private BFFs, we call them, best friends forever. We have a lot more regions joining, and it's great to have that. As Michelle's doing right now, she's passing it to me as AMCC's executive director to kick off the call, kind of describe what we're going to do in these 30 minutes. And some Mondays we have presentations from regions or BFFs. Other Mondays like this, we do a round robin. But it always starts with kind of us giving a quick report about what's happening. I reinforce messages that are in the AMCC update. That's that weekly newsletter that if you haven't gotten it, just send a note to David Van Sicklen, or you can just sign up online on our website. And so I'm going to go do that now. And then I also, after that, I'm going to have David give a quick ask to folks. And then I'm going to turn to a few announcements, starting with Michael Britt-Crane. So Michael, good to see you on the call this morning. So from the AMCC update, we have a lot of things in the works, to include putting together a AMCC RFI response to the Tech Hub program request, basically the federal government asking for our input as a collaborative into the criteria for the Tech Hub program, which is the 10 billion IMCP-like bottom-up regional competition. And so there's also other RFIs, and it can be overwhelming in terms of the information that the federal government is seeking. There's one right behind that called the Recompete Pilot Program. We can talk further about that. And a new program coming out of the Department of Energy looks very cool, called the State Manufacturing Leadership Program. So lots on deck there. We're also doing our AMCC road shows and looking forward to our visits to Connecticut and Rhode Island in the next couple of weeks. The communities of practice are meeting in DC. So AMCC is the nation's manufacturing community of practice, but there are a half a dozen or so other communities of practice, some dedicated to exclusively to programs that overlap with AMCC, for example, like the Build Back Better Regional Challenge, the economic development districts, coal communities, all that kind of stuff. So we want to coordinate with one another, and we're going to meet in DC to talk about how we do that without overwhelming you, the regions out there doing the good hard work to strengthen the American manufacturing sector. So those are some of the highlights. There's also, there's a lot more other good information in there, but just wanted to highlight those things. And then part of our, job as AMCC is to collect and curate work that's already happening in regions and be a place for, easy access or easier access to that treasure trove of info. So David Van Sicklen, our operations director, came up with an idea. And so I want to turn it to you, David, to talk about the ask of communities on this, the newsletter idea here. David?
Yeah, happy to. Thanks, Matt, and morning, everyone. It's a really straightforward request. I was hoping that anyone who's on the call right now would be able to share any newsletters or publications that their organization comes out with regularly. Just in the chat, if you've got a subscription link or somewhere on your website to sign up. We're already on many of these publications, but just making sure we cover the whole universe. If you have just a quick minute to throw a link into the chat, that would be much appreciated. Related to that, we're also hoping to add a section to our weekly updates for regional news and announcements. You saw on this last update that we included an upcoming roundtable that UAMI is going to be hosting related to DEI. If you have any similar events coming up that you think are of interest to other regions, or you'd like any participation or attendance, or just any updates you'd like to share, again, you could send me an email or Matt an email, and we'll make sure that those get included in those weekly updates as well. So that's pretty much an open call for any news, updates, announcements that you'd like us to share through our platform as well. Yeah, so thank you I see a couple of people are already putting it in the chat. So thank you for that.
Awesome. Well, thanks, David. Appreciate that, and appreciate everyone, helping us connect the dots, right? Let's not reinvent the wheel where we have cool things happening in one region or another. Let's share it with one another, like we have been, for this whole time, which is a nice transition to the open mic part of this call. David, you have a slide on that, I think. Yeah. And I would like to turn first to Michael Britt-Crane for an update. So a little background on Michael and his update here. Many of you know that we've been working with DOD for many years, going back, to the supply chain report that they issued in 2018 about the weakness in the defense industrial supply chain, and that led to the NDAA, the creation of the Defense Manufacturing Community Support Program. And then subsequently, there's been many other federal bottom-up programs like it. But Michael's been a good partner in trying to, not only strengthen, the defense industrial base, but get all the federal agencies, working with us to work better together. And we before COVID, we did a whole slew of activities with Michael, and he can maybe amplify that a little bit. So we had a project about creating a network of networks and trying to put together a convening around that. I've reported out on that set of activities for a while. And this will be an ongoing project, but Michael has been great in trying to push the agenda and trying to support a convening of sorts to advance this collective impact work. And so he just wanted to come on and give an update about where we are in the project, and in terms of kind of the short and medium term, and we're going to continue to work with him, on the long term. So, Michael, let me turn it to you for a minute or two. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Matt, for a great introduction. And I'm really happy to be here talking to you all today. From OSD Mantech, just to, as Matt said, give a quick update. So we've continued a lot of really great work, a lot with the interagency, as Matt mentioned. I'll touch on that here in a second, but I think the primary update I have to give is on the network of networks sort of initial convening. And as Matt said, this is something that we had planned for the spring of 2020 in conjunction with OEA or OLDCC. I think that was right around when they changed their name. So unfortunately, we've been caught up in some contracting issues for actually about 6 months or so. The grant that we relied on was actually terminated in kind of an unprecedented fashion. So it's really put us on our back foot with a number of different things, including this convening, which, as Matt mentioned, is really meant to be this network of networks. And our initial plan for this first one, this will be an annual thing that we drive forward with. But the first one we're still planning to do. We're currently targeting end of July. But that being said, it's still not quite on contract yet. We're expecting that to get completed in the next few weeks, certainly by the end of the month, but we're hoping for sooner than that. And at that time, we'll have a clear timeline once we've got our provider on contract. And as I guess a bit of a reminder, the goal here is to bring the manufacturing institutes, AMCC, defense manufacturing communities, and a few others. But those three are kind of the focus for the initial one, with the goal to really expand quite a bit from there. As I mentioned, that we've been engaged in quite a bit of interagency work with the White House, with Department of Labor, Education, EDA. Actually saw our friend Andy Stetner on Friday out at ARM, which was nice in his new position with labor. So I think there's going to be definitely is going to be a lot more opportunity to expand the network of folks like yourselves that are doing the great work of manufacturing focused development and workforce activities on the ground. I'll just mention one more thing as an update. The administration has had a pretty strong focus on bio-industrial manufacturing. There's an executive order that came out in September. There are reports that are going to be published on that in the middle of March. And the Department of Defense is investing in this area pretty heavily as well, to the tune of $1.2 billion plus some additional congressional ads for 23. So this is over the next 5 years. So this is an area that's going to be scaling up, I think, pretty quickly. And we'd be happy to maybe come back on at a later date once some awards are made to give a brief on what that technology is all about and what we're working with. Over.
That's awesome. Well, Michael, this is tough stuff, right? Getting these different silos to work together. So a hearty thank you for your continuing determination to make it happen. And yeah, we're all in this for the long term, right? So whatever kind of hitches along the way that we all encounter, that's our collective challenge, right? Is to overcome them. So I appreciate the update, and I think I'd be remiss if somebody had a hot question for that Michael could take a minute to. He's not always on because he's a busy man on our AMCC Monday calls. Just wanted to give a quick opportunity if somebody has a specific question for Michael.
Happy to take questions, and yeah, definitely thank you for everyone's patience with this. Very much appreciated.
Yeah, so this is Mike Eller in Florida. I know there was a lot of discussion with Mike Gilroy about sort of the initial focus of the network of networks convening would be around workforce. Is that still sort of the thought, or is there any more information there on sort of the theme for this initial convening in July, if and when that happens? Fingers crossed.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, Mike Gilroy will remain the sort of primary point of contact on this, and he'll be able to be more engaged with you all soon, especially once we get this back on contract, or once we get it on contract initially. So yes, the focus will certainly be on workforce development, and that will be a primary focus going forward as well. But really, it's the intersection of workforce development as integrated in regional economic development with a manufacturing focus. So it's sort of a multi-topic thing, as you all understand. This is a kind of complex work we do here, but our office is, my office is, I'm in manufacturing technology. My program is called the Manufacturing Education and Workforce Development Program. So that is our focus, and that's what we're going to stay focused on. But as you know, the workforce efforts really encompass and engage with the greater regional development focus, which is quite interdisciplinary, crossing many different areas. So hope that helps.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a good question, Mike. Michael Britt-Crane, gets a heavy dose from me and our stakeholders about how important workforce is, but it's integrated with these other parts, the big six other parts of the manufacturing ecosystem. So it's about integrated solutions, and leading with workforce, of course, is relevant to all of our good hard work. Any other questions, quick questions for Michael? Thanks again, Michael. I want to make sure that we have time to open this up. We've had a lot of presentations, so we haven't had that many round robin calls like today. And so this is an opportunity where, folks can chime in and share, as David's got that slide up there, things that are going on in your region that others could benefit from, new opportunities and challenges that you're looking for insight. I mean, that's one of the cool things that's been important in the AMCC network over the years, is folks presenting challenges. And then of course, this goes to BFFs too, other quick announcements. So let's, I guess, David, can you curate, if people can put their hands up, maybe we can do it that way. Or I can definitely call on people too, which you guys love. So let's see here.
Well, Utah always steps up, right? Oh, here, let me put my camera on.
Yeah.
So I dropped into the chat we got hands up. Good, this is great. But anyway, I dropped into the chat our tomorrow's second roundtable discussion on diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and accessibility. We've got about 90 people are registered, and I encourage anyone on this call who would like to. I put the link in the chat. We're going to have our featured speaker is Michelle, and she's going to give an update on the national program. And then I've designated community leaders to define each one of DEI, BA to kind of get the discussion going. So that's what I'd like to invite everyone to. And it's always great to hear Michelle. So the registration is in the link.
And I also put, to Linda, thank you for that. I also put the registration in the AMCC update that went out on Friday. So it's also in there. And let's see if there's any other announcements, and then we can pivot to a more specific, DEI conversation. After that.
Matt, it looks like Ben has their hand raised.
Oh, great. Hey, Ben.
Hey, good morning, Matt, and good morning, everyone. This is Ben Vickery from NIST MEP, and I wanted to share that the first of the MEP Expansion Awards pilot programs request for applications was published this past week, February 27th. And so this is under a new authority granted by Congress for the MEP program under the CHIPS and Science Act 2022. And so what this means is that current MEP centers will be submitting non-competitive applications to implement projects to expand the existing MEP capabilities to provide national supply chain optimization and establish a supply chain intelligence network. And the applicants, when deemed successful proposals, will be awarded cooperative agreements for up to $400,000 over a 2-year period. And a webinar was held by NIST MEP this past Thursday for the MEP centers about this RFA opportunity. We anticipate that the application deadline will be 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, March 28th. We've developed an RFA and an FAQ in support of the RFA for the MEP centers. And so we're very excited about this opportunity moving forward. So thank you very much, Matt. I know there's some MEP centers on this call, very excited that they're part of this. So just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ben. It's good to hear your voice. And yeah, whatever updates, if you can send those, links or whatever to David and myself, and then we can also try to, communicate those messages through our newsletter too. So thanks for that. If we don't have any other, updates, events, things to share, we have a slide teed up for, a more curated DEI discussion, as I put in the AMCC update. David, you want to pull that one up?
Yeah, happy to.
Thank you. So, you know, as Tulinda was referring to, our framework is around sustainable development, which means economic competitiveness, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and belonging, and environmental sustainability, all in a secure environment. The 4 parts of sustainable development, and building DEI into the work that we do is a challenge. And so connecting, and that's what we put in the slide here, connecting, including underserved populations is a valuable activity. And then we've had a lot of sharing in the past, but we want to continue to do that. And our metrics work that we're doing with all these other federal agencies and that we're trying out on our AMCC roadshows is an important piece of that. And so I wanted to, and Michelle at the Century Foundation and our partners of the Urban Manufacturing Alliance, Michelle's going to be making a presentation to AMCC about what's happening on some of their locations in terms of trying to operationalize DEI in the workforce. But let's just ask some open questions here. Like, where do people go for DEI resources right now? I mean, Tulinda, so you're doing this project. We were there in Utah. You had this cool thing I've reported out before. Like, where do you seek input on DEI resources and information? Tulinda, are you on? Well, Michelle, if Tulinda's not, Michelle, like, where?
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's
Well,
okay. Yeah, this is just kind of a brainstorming session,
There's a whole surge, I feel, of activities. Our Chamber of Commerce did a big DEI symposium, but it was really like DEI experts talking heads kind of stuff. There's, of course, with Women's Day, there's a lot of activities going on tomorrow. What I found with our manufacturers is it's like noise in the background for them. They're not sure how to latch on. And that's when we put together the Roundtable concept to more focus it to specifically manufacturing. We've built a page on our website, probably nobody's been to it, but where we're now adding resources. And then on the other side, I learned from our Roundtable that the community, the organizations that represent these communities don't really know how to engage with the business community. So we're going to need to, there's lots of reports and studies, but this engagement, that's what we need. We need more actual face-to-face or Zoom-to-Zoom conversations to elevate is my opinion.
No, I appreciate that, Tulinda. And if you look in the chat, Becky, you're mentioning that there's an innovation hub by Jobs for the Future, and I know Stu Bass is on the call too. So I don't. Could Becky or Stu speak to that as a easier on ramp for regions around the country to kind of operationalize DEIA?
Yeah, this is Becky. Our Innovation Hub is a DOL project, and it does focus on registered apprenticeship, but I'll put a link in the chat, and it does have some really great resources that would apply to manufacturing or any industry, even beyond apprenticeship. So let me include that in the chat. Thanks,
Becky. Stu, you want to speak to that?
No, I think Becky covered it. I would check out a lot of the JFF has posted a lot of resources for apprenticeship as well. I don't know if any of the folks on the call today are interested in pursuing that as an option for their workforce. I think my colleagues, Becky and Melissa, are providing those links now as we speak. What a team. Thank you, Matt, for giving us the opportunity.
Could I please, I have a comment on this.
Please, yeah.
I'm Carolyn Bush from Washington State, where I work on workforce innovation and where I staff the legislatively created at the state level manufacturing council, and they are charged specifically with doubling the manufacturing base, and within that making sure that nobody's left out, so doubling the number of women and minority owned businesses. And I would just say that in terms of our manufacturing workforce, it is as diverse as the overall workforce, which is as diverse as the state. So that's good news. Like, we're not facing, a terribly warped workforce issue. But when you get to business ownership, it is terribly warped. And in fact, when you look at the people of color compared to white people have far fewer women owning businesses than people of color. There are far more women-owned business in terms of the people of color, but such a small number of people of color own businesses. In addition, the regular structures that you might expect to give you information about this, like I got that from Dun & Bradstreet, when I went to our own Office of Minority and Women Business Enterprises, they had none of that. And that was kind of a checklist for federal grants and other things, and not really at all embedded with our overall business ecosystem. So I think we have far more barriers to this than we do, glide paths, right? And we've really got to address some of that. We've got to address those barriers because they are preventing folks from entering the system and being successful within the manufacturing world.
Totally. Carolyn, thank you for that input. David, I suspect you are, but just wanted to make sure that you're capturing all the good, links in the chat. Lots of different programs out there. The trick is, how do we, bring them together and make easy access for it? And the second prompt we had in there is, how do you convene stakeholders around this topic? I mentioned what we experienced on one of the road shows. So that's an important theme. What DEI activities do you employ to strengthen your region's manufacturing ecosystem? How do you measure it? All of these are super important. I think Michelle will probably be speaking to this. She's going to do a presentation coming up on, Michelle, when is that? That's in a couple of weeks.
This is for, yes, on the 27th, actually, 3 weeks from today.
Yeah, 3 weeks from today. And AMCC, of course, in our mission statement, and our partners is Century Foundation and Urban Manufacturing Alliance, and our collaboration with JFF and the other communities of practice, we're going to continue to work on this. Super important, much appreciated. And our ambition is to have a lot of these on-ramps, to operationalizing DEI in how we strengthen the manufacturing community workforce ecosystem. So this is all good. I'm hope I didn't any other comments on this. I wanted to make sure. Let's see here. Kevin Ross at Accenture just put a note in here. If anyone's interested in Accenture's approach to inclusion and diversity, Kevin, what is that you put in there?
Yeah, it's a link to Accenture's approach to inclusion and diversity. A lot of that information there is focusing on what we have done to improve that within our organization, but there's an opportunity to potentially share best practices and lesson learns with this community.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you in advance for allowing us to tap into that. And that might be an interesting presentation at some point to her, to meld what's happening in private sector with what nonprofits are doing, with what public agencies are doing, right? So I'm sure there's a lot of lessons to be learned there. But we're at the top of the hour. So Michelle, let me turn it back to you to close out the meeting.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone. We're wishing you a great week, and I'm looking forward to the call with Utah tomorrow. No pressure, about 90 people, but looking forward to it. And just thank you so much, everyone.